Hey there, I'm Alan Firstenberg,
Hey, I'm Linda Lawton,
and we are Two Voice Devs.
Two Voice Devs.
Hey Linda, welcome back to the show. Good to have you.
Hey, thanks for having me back. It's always great chatting with you.
Oh, it's always fun chatting with you as well. This is going to be a fun one, I think, because as folks may know, Google just released finally their Gemini model for developers to play with, and I kind of wanted to get your first take on playing with it, and share my first take on playing with it. Just from the little bit of time we've had so far, what do we think about this model? Does it, is it living up to the hype, or is it's decent? Kind of want your take.
Well, actually, I think that I want to take over your channel for a minute because
Well, okay.
because
So
because I have a question for you.
okay.
All right. I want you now. Alan has been using these AI models for a while, but what you might not know is I'm actually kind of new on this. I only started back in September, so I've only been using these models programmatically for about 3 months. So I've got a question for you, Alan. Why don't you tell us, without taking too much time, because I'd like to have my lunch, what exactly is the difference between the old Bison model that we were using previously and this new Gemini model? Now, okay, there are two Gemini models because as you might know, there's the Gemini Pro model, which is just text-based, and then there's the Gemini Pro image model, right?
Vision. Gemini Pro Vision.
Vision
Yeah.
model. Okay, so why don't you tell us what is the difference between these models and the old one we had?
So from a developer perspective, from my perspective, I think the vision element of it is the first and most obvious thing.
Obviously, yes.
Right. And from what they've told us about the training of the model, it's not just that there is a vision component that's kind of tacked onto it. It's that the underlying model itself was trained on images alongside the text. So it's one model that handles both of them, that was trained on both of these things. So the impression I get about the text version of the model itself is that it still was trained on the additional data. It's just not tuned to receive images.
Yeah.
Okay. So that's the obvious first one over the Palm Bison models. The other is, certainly from my very, very early testing, it feels just as fast as Bison was, but feels like the responses are a little, what's the best way I can put it? Sharper. They kind of feel more cohesive. I feel like Bison was in a lot of ways really just spitting out random words, and the Gemini model doesn't feel like it's completely spitting out random stuff. It feels more like the patterns that it's coming up with make more sense. They feel like just like slightly better polished English is the best way I can put it.
Well, I also noticed that the length of the responses is larger.
Interesting. Okay. I know. Okay.
If you actually look at, if you do you can actually do a select and see what models you have access to. And two of the things that are returned are the token length for the input and for the output. And I could run my app now, but I think that the token length for Pro is like 30,000, whereas Bison was only about 10.
Right. So I believe they've said, and I probably need to go dig into the documentation. There's so much documentation right now that trying to, keep track of everything I can't, is I believe the default context window for Gemini Pro is a 32K context window, while the default context window for Bison was only 8K.
Yeah, it was 8K. Yeah, you're right. It was 8.
And there was a 32K model available on the Vertex side, but they never did that on the Maker Suite side.
And you have to pay for Vertex.
and you have to pay for Vertex.
Yeah.
I don't know, and I haven't seen pricing yet on the Maker Suite side, or sorry, the Google.
Well, they said it was supposed to come in December, but like Dennis said earlier, December of what year? We don't know that yet.
You know, so and it's no longer Maker Suite, it's Google AI Studio. So
yeah, so my T-shirt is already a collector's edition.
Item. Yeah.
Yes, it's already a collector's item.
But I know you and I have been talking, and I know some of the stuff is going to be appearing on your channel.
Yes.
But I kind of, why don't you kind of give us a preview of some of the stuff that you're launching there, and talk about what you've done with it.
I've done quite a bit of testing with it, or basically it's all I've done. I'm lucky enough to be freelance, so I can work on what I feel like working on when I can put everything else aside and work on it. I actually see, the thing is I think I'm nicer to these models than you are. The thing is I'm very nice with these models. I treat these models as though they are a 2-year-old, for example. So I don't expect them to be perfect. One of the first things that I did, which is, you know that I'm a big fan of Stack Overflow, and I like to answer questions over there. And I see a lot of people that are basically copying code from like ChatGPT or Bard, and they can't get it to work, and then they toss it over on Stack Overflow. Why isn't this working? Well, because your model is an idiot and told you not to do X, Y, and Z, right? So I figured that's one of the first things that I tested with this, is I basically asked it to give me Python code to upload a file to the Google Drive API into a specific folder, and that I'm uploading a JPEG. And I asked it to go ahead and print that out for me. And it went ahead and did it. And its code was, I didn't test its code, but I've worked with these APIs for a long time. So I'm looking at its code. First of all, it was using the version 2 of the Google Drive API instead of version 3.
Not a good start.
Not a good start. And I actually think, I didn't test it, but I actually think that the code was actually using version 3. So it was telling you to load version 2 of the library, but sending code to version 3. So that didn't work. Now I tried again. Now that was with Python, and I tried again with Node.js. And I'm not the best Node.js developer, but there it did it right. It used the version 3 of the library, and it was able to figure it out. I kind of flagged it. This is weird. Why are you doing this type of thing?
I think you just highlighted, though, something that is different. Again, that's different between this and between the Bison models, is that Gemini Pro, they were kind of releasing as an all-in-one model, whereas Bison, they had Code Bison, they had Code Chat Bison, they had Chat Bison, they had all of these sub-flavors. And with Gemini, it's just Gemini.
Well, no, not really. So one of the things that I found weird is the fact that there are actually 2 different calls. If you want to send a multimodal with text and image, you can send that to the Gemini Pro Vision model, but you can't just send text to Gemini Pro Vision. You have to use Gemini Pro. So if you're going to be having a chat with it, you're going to have to switch back and forth between the models. And I think that is silly why they did that. And if they did that, then why couldn't they have done something in the library to, I went ahead and created my own little overload, which goes into, am I sending an image? Well, then send it to this one. If I'm not, then send it to the other one type of thing.
In the LangChain library that I'm working on, and I haven't had time to release it yet, to make it available yet. I plan to do exactly that, is hide that under the covers, because there's no reason to dig into that.
I mean, the only thing is because you remember how we were looking at the context where you can send more. I haven't tested this part yet, but you can send more than one context. So you can give it like a chat history with the previous, and you could say if it was the user or the or if it was a user or if it was the AI.
User or model is what they call
user or model, so that
you
could see if this previous one was the user and then the model and the user and the model. Now, what's going to happen if you have a conversation with it where you don't always have a model. So if I ask it, what is this picture? And then it tells me, it responds with, that is a picture of a carrot. And then I say, okay, what color are carrots? And then I ask it, and then it
Right.
responds, that one of them is going to be using the one model and the other one's going to be using the other model. Can it even load that?
Well, okay, so two things there. One of the things that I find interesting about the certainly looking at the REST structure, which is where I have been playing.
Yeah, you were testing with curl, right?
I was testing with curl.
Yeah,
so
and I was testing with Python.
I was going right, I was sending it, REST and JSON. One of the interesting things is that the data structure that you send for chat versus the one that you send for a one-off, what we would call a completion, it's almost identical.
Yeah.
They're almost identical calls, with the only difference being that in one case you're just sending one prompt, and in the other one you're sending an array of prompts that are labeled. Yeah. That's the only difference between the two.
I think that's much better than the other way.
Oh, much better. This is much better.
This is nice. This is they get thumbs up with that, because that makes so much more sense to just, that was one of the things that was throwing me, trying to figure out how to do it.
Yeah, no, this was, and it was even worse using the previous models, because the code Bison model used a slightly different interface. Every single variant had a slightly different JSON structure, and it was driving me nuts to put into a library. This is clear, consistent. It's mostly consistent.
Once
and
you
we'll get to that we'll get to that in a minute too. So tell us about some of your more successful projects.
Well, I guess the first project I had is, we've all seen Google's lovely little video that they put out a week ago there, where they had the video showing and Gemini answering as they show things on the video. I was like, I can do that, because it's obvious. I go into why you can't do that. I have a video coming out which explains all of this, but basically right now it's not streaming. It's a single picture that you send. Now, yes, we could do a 30 FPS call to Gemini, and every 30 seconds, 30 times a second, you're sending a call to Gemini. But the thing is the calls to Gemini take time to return, because they're going over the internet.
Well, they're being processed too.
Exactly. They're being processed as well, because depending upon what picture you give it, I actually found that text takes longer to process than images.
Oh, that's interesting.
We can talk about that later. But the thing is it takes it time to return. So you can't do, right now, we can't do a video streaming to Gemini saying, what are you seeing? So
you wrote a program that
I created a very simple Python desktop app, which streams from my video, from my webcam. And then I added a text field where I can type in it. And I basically type in, what do you see? I hit enter. It takes a screenshot, and it sends the screenshot from the webcam and the text over to Gemini. And it comes back with the response.
Pretty straightforward.
Which is very straightforward. It works perfectly. I said, okay, what am I holding? And I did this and then hit the button, and it came back with the yellow school bus, and then, I asked it stuff like, do you like my hair? And apparently my hair is very fashionable, or stuff like that. So it definitely reads it. And, as I was talking with a few Googlers, we realized that this could actually be very useful for people with low vision impairment. My grandmother was blind in the later years of her life, and she had to go to the bank and have them fold the corners of the bills specifically, so that she would know if she was giving somebody a $10 bill or a $5 bill or $20 bill, because you can't see them. You can't see the difference. I don't know if you can now. I haven't lived in the United States or you can't feel the difference. Yeah, they're not going to do that. So anyways, so basically I could easily hold up a $20 bill and ask it, what is this? And then I could do what I did with Palm, which is, with my Palm sample that I had, I hooked Palm up to text to speech, so that I could talk to Palm the Palm API, and that it would respond, and then it would play over my speakers.
Right.
So
It's really, you know,
I could add this to that code easily, and this project is going to be open sourced, so it should be open sourced by the time your video airs, and that would work perfectly. And it's literally like this much code on 2 different files. I mean, it's nothing, absolutely nothing. And what makes matter even better is, because I am a new Python developer, I don't know how to do any of this. You know what? Gemini helped me write the code. You know, honestly, I have never created a Windows app in Python. No. Gemini helped me write the code. I of course wrote the code for
the Gemini calls itself.
For the Gemini calls itself, because I had to, you know, but because of course it doesn't have access to that. I think I asked it and it said it has access to data from April 2023 or something like that. So it doesn't have any of the new stuff.
No, that's absolutely an interesting application. And I think, you know, I know back in my glass days when I was wearing glass,
Yep.
That's one of the things that we talked about, was being able to, you know, hold up a can and say, what is this? And that was a feature that Alexa has, is that, but, you know, being able to do that with almost no training, with a few lines of code, really powerful.
Now,
and and you know, yes, we can hook it up to speech to text and text to speech, and that's relatively easy.
Yeah.
And you've got a very, you know, a fairly simple, fairly powerful tool.
Well, I'm also wondering if it's something you could do with audio, because they showed it doing audio. Now I'm hard of hearing, so I go around with hearing aids. So I'm wondering, because my phone can send everything to my hearing aids, whether or not it could be used for hearing impaired people as well. I don't know.
Well, I think one of the things that's going to be interesting, and something that I certainly want to play around with, is having as part of the prompt, say, reply to this using SSML. So that's something that we know can directly go, you know, we can turn into audio. But we also know that Gemini itself was trained on audio. You know, audio input directly into Gemini is not unrealistic someday. And we'll see.
Because I mean, I have a chat bot that I created using Palm. It's a Google chatbot, and basically I gave it the capability of sending emails for me, depending upon, but what I have, it's a several step process, because whatever the user asks, I have to parse that first and find out, did I ask to create an event? Did I ask to create an email? So it has to figure out first. And that's where I'm hoping the other system that you were testing would be able to help with.
Those sorts of things, I think, would, you know, we've got tools like Dialogflow that I think would be better at that sort of thing, you know, and we'll see exactly where Dialogflow, you know, we know that Dialogflow is getting at least some Gemini integration. We'll see exactly how all of that goes down in the future. But speaking of stuff that I was testing, so my initial test with Vision did not go so well.
No, it didn't.
So I was at a conference last week where they served macarons as part of the dessert. So I took a picture of this. This week, I asked Gemini to count how many macarons were on the plate. And actually, my goal was to say, was to make it more abstract, was to say, you know, here's a bunch of macarons. If there were 3 people eating it, how many would each person get? And how many would be left over? Because one of the things that Gemini is supposed to do is be able to do this abstract reasoning fairly well.
Yeah.
Do reasoning fairly well. And it did the reasoning part fairly well. It did the counting the macarons part pretty poorly. I could never consistently get it to tell me the correct number of macarons.
I think, but the thing is I like your idea of trying to get it to reason things out. So I suggest you go ahead and take like 5 apples, but space them out more so that we can see if it can do that.
Yeah, I might try something more like that and see just how well.
Space it out so that it can, because I'd love to do that. I mean, I also had the idea with scanning like a Rubik's Cube and see if it could help me solve a Rubik's Cube. I haven't had time to do that yet because I don't think it can, but it would be interesting if it could.
It would be interesting to see just how it replies. Yeah, I was trying much more simple reasoning, like, you know, here's a plate of cookies. If each person gets the same number of cookies, how many would each person get? So that's multi-step reasoning, which is supposed to be new. And like I said, it did the reasoning part pretty well. It told me there were 21 macarons, and, you know, divide that among 3 people, and
But there were 22, weren't
but there were 22 macarons.
Yeah, but did you try and sending it 2 pictures at the same time? Can
Yes,
you make
I
a
did.
request with more than 1 picture?
I did. So one of my other tests was I have
Oh yeah, you gave the bookshelf.
I have a picture of 3 of the shelves in my bookshelf behind me. And this was a photo that I had used, these are some photos that I had made a few months back when I was doing no, it wasn't Palm. It was, they had a model called multimodal embeddings, and we'll talk about embeddings again in a minute.
Okay.
And what I had done was I had gotten the embeddings for a couple of pictures of almost identical pictures of my bookshelf, except one had this yellow box in it and the other one didn't. And at the time, I was comparing what the embeddings of the 2 were and how similar they were, and they came out very similar. That was a good sign. So what I did with Gemini is I gave it these 2 pictures and I said, what's changed between these 2? And sometimes it gave almost correct answers, but incorrect in bizarre ways. So for example, I said, you know, this is image A, and I showed it the one with the box. And this is image B, and I showed it the one without the box. And I said, what's the difference between the 2? And it said, image B has a yellow box where image A does not. Or I think it actually said a yellow mug. It thought it was a mug. Okay, I'll give it that.
But you're asking it,
but it was backwards. It got the answer backwards.
But the thing is it's still a 2D image, and you're asking it to find a 3D object in a 2D image. Can it actually differentiate that this is a 3D object? That would it be better to just give it sheets of paper or something?
Well,
what text did I remove?
the tough noogies. The world isn't flat. The world
You're being mean to it.
I'm not being mean at all.
It's still a baby.
I'm not being mean at all. It's a perfectly reasonable request.
Yes, I agree. It's a perfectly reasonable request, but I don't think we are there yet. I think your issue is with objects being 3D-dimensional, and it not being able to figure that out yet.
No. Here's my defense of this. So I'm willing to give it leniency that it couldn't figure out that it was a box, not a mug. That's fine. Okay, I'm cutting it slack on exactly what it thinks it is.
Mug-like at all, honestly.
Fine. I'm cutting it slack on this. Okay. The problem though, and it's yellow. It stands out more than anything else on my shelf does.
Yeah.
My problem was that it got it backwards. It thought that this object existed in the picture where it didn't, and thought that it didn't exist on the picture where it did.
What prompt did you use? Are you sure that it knew which one?
I tried this multiple times, making it even more and more clear about which picture was which.
See, I was actually lucky. I gave it a picture of my daughter and said, this is Jessica. And then I gave it a picture of me and said, this is Linda. Or no, is this Jessica? And it took it a long time to come back. I think it was pretty close to a minute before it came back.
Wow.
I was worried it was going to time out. And it finally came back with, no, that's not Jessica. But the thing is it was a further away picture of Jessica. She was standing against a wall where I was close up. So I still wonder if it's an issue with the picture.
It'll be interesting.
Seeing it right.
I mean, you were trying some other pictures though, and it was correctly identifying you.
Oh yeah. I gave it two different pictures of me. One was actually black and white, and it could identify it. What I was actually wondering is whether or not, if I take a baby picture of me and then a picture of me as an adult, can it do that?
Well, let me answer it this way. Google Photos can.
Because I
So
was
if,
wondering, can we use this to like find people on the wanted list, to scan all of Facebook's images or something, or everything on
yeah,
Instagram and find wanted people, or
there are
find
people,
missing children or
there are
something
people
like
looking
that?
at doing those sorts of things.
Yeah,
It's an
that'd be
interesting,
fun.
but also a scary question. Um,
Well,
so
yeah, if you're on vacation and somebody's just snapping pictures around you, and all of a sudden Google identifies a wanted person or a
right.
missing child sitting in the background, that could be cool. Maybe we'll find, I don't know, what was her name, Maddie or something.
What's your so I don't want this to drag out too long because I think
Yeah, because I still need lunch.
we're going to have more episodes about this. I guarantee it. As we
Yes.
play more, as we discover more. What's the one interesting or most interesting feature you've seen so far, or
They
the
can
one
do
thing you want to?
images and text. It's just the fact that you can do both. It just opens up so many possibilities. I mean, yes, ChatGTP and Bard were great because they could do text. There are so many things that we could use that for. But the fact that I can give it an image and have it identify it is just, it's groundbreaking. I mean, think of, I don't know, just like scanning a security camera. I wanted to hook it up to my webcam outside so that I could identify, my husband when he comes in, or if it's my daughter coming in, or my neighbor walking her dog. I don't know. But still, there's so many things because it can figure out who this person is. I mean, but then the GDPR ramifications come in and things get really scary.
Well, yes, you're in Europe. You've got interesting issues here.
I am in Europe, and I have to use this through a VPN, and which is highly annoying that I have to start a VPN every single time I want to use this.
But as for the multimodal, I think it's not just that it's multimodal; it's that it's mixed multimodal. It's I can have
you
text,
do both. Yeah,
and then
both.
I can have text and then an image and then more text and then another image and then more text and another. I can mix this up in ways that make the most sense. I don't have to say, here's the attached photo and have a wall of text. I can, and the hint that there's going to be other forms of modality coming in the future.
Okay. All right.
So my favorite feature, or the one that I'm most intrigued about reading more about, is that in the AI studio side of it, they have a model called the AQA model. And I already forget what it stands for. But it basically boils down to a retrieval augmented generation tuned model. So you can do two things with it, at least according to the documentation.
Yeah, that's the model. You've been trying to explain to me what this model is and why I want to use it, and it still hasn't completely.
So one of the big arguments that I make is that generative AI as a source of truth is terrible at a source of truth. It's abysmal at it. And we shouldn't try to use it that way.
Yeah.
Instead, what we should do is use it in kind of two phases. One phase to turn what I call the fuzzy human thinking into a digital representation, something that's concrete and discrete that we understand as developers, and do whatever we want with that. And then once we have a discrete answer, turn that into something that's human friendly. Two phases. Popularly that's known as retrieval augmented generation. So we've got a retrieval phase and a generation phase. This model can work that way. It can work as a generator. So you give it a chunk, sets of truth, and then ask it a question, and it will attempt to answer the question based on those sources of truth. And the really neat part is that, and I'll be having a blog article coming out about this if it's not already out. The neat part about this is that it tells you it gives you a confidence score, how confident it is that it thinks it answered the question based on the information that you've given it. That's different and unique, and I think that's pretty cool. And then they took it a step further and say, oh, and here's a data store. So you can just store a bunch of documents and sets of truth and just ask questions against this document store. And that's kind of neat because there are a bunch of companies out there that are literally providing this or providing the components of it. And Google just built it into the model. So if I have a set of frequently asked questions, I can code up each one as a question and an answer. And then when a person asks a question, the model itself will go into this repository, find the answers that look most likely, and then use them to generate an answer to the user based on that information. That's pretty powerful. That's saying, we now have definitive information that we will use to base our answer off of. And I can do that for my company. I can do that for my blog. I can do that for
All of my
hypothetically a
questions,
podcast. All of your
my
questions.
questions and answers over on Stack Overflow.
Exactly.
I can make a Ask Linda.
Exactly.
That'd be cool.
So this is great for people who have those questions and answers already, or have content that they already have. If people want to ask about that content, it used to be you do keyword searches. Now you can have a conversation with that content.
Well,
and it's all within a model. It's not even I've got to find 3 or 4 different components and put them together. It's one model.
Well, think about a company, an automobile company. They could load the documentation on the car, the manual for the car, right? And then you could go in and have like a chat bot. You can go and have a chat with the manual.
Exactly.
And then answer the questions on the chat bot on that. So that'd be cool. But what about loading?
And to be clear, it's not that this is a new concept. The concept has been around for a few years, and certainly over the past year, everyone is talking about this sort of approach, the retrieval augmented generation approach. But to do it before now, you would essentially need to make 2 API calls to the LLM, plus a call to wherever you stored this content to pull it out. So you're talking 3 API calls going on here, and you need to put it together, and you need to do a bunch of other stuff. This can put it all in one place.
What would it do with a Google Analytics export over in BigQuery?
I don't know. But I'd also point out that even Google has other tools that do this as well. I mean, Google Vertex AI Search and Conversation also has this kind of feature. The question really is,
not something we can tune.
Sure it is. Well, it's not something that we can tune. One of the advantages to this is that we have control over temperature. And we've got a little additional control over it. Still not so, and I'm still playing with this, so I'm not sure how much control we have. And this is actually one of the things that I think we need to explore more, is there seem to be at least a couple of places in all of these models that are working not quite as we expect. I mean, right now, at least from my first read of it, for example, the chat model doesn't have a system prompt. It's just a chat. So you can't, the notion.
Yeah, I noticed that.
And I'm not sure why, and I'm not sure how to work around it, but I'm hoping to find a way to work around it. So there's still caveats and pitfalls. We're in the early days here.
So before we stop.
Yes.
Now I have one last question for you.
Uh-oh, yes.
I'm going to give you a magic wand. Now you have a choice. Now you can either choose to, do you want to predict what they're going to add next, or do you want to tell us your wish list to what you hope that they will add next?
Wow.
Just because we all want the insight into Alan's brain, what Alan thinks would be really cool to have happen.
I think so there's two elements to that, though.
Yeah.
So you said what Alan thinks would be really cool to have happen. What I think is cool is different than what I want.
Yeah, I know. But it's up to you how you want to answer. I'll leave it pretty broad, but I'd like your take on what
what I think will be interesting will be seeing what the Gemini Nano model can do. Because one of the neat things is that we know that Nano, which is the smaller version.
Yeah, Gecko.
No. In Gemini, it's called Nano.
Is it called Nano? Okay, fine.
Yeah. That Nano will be available to developers on Android, and possibly just the Pixel 8 initially.
Mm-hmm.
So I'm really curious to see what that API looks like, what that interface looks like, and what developers do with it. And we know
Yeah.
that's out as well.
Yep.
But I don't know anything about it. That, you know, that's definitely going to have to be a later show and another guest host. I think what I am kind of curious to see is, so we just got the middle tier. We got Gemini Pro.
Yeah.
And we've been playing with it, and it's good, but it's kind of comparable in many ways to what to what GPT 3.5 did.
Mm-hmm.
I'm curious what Ultra is going to look like. And that's the bigger Gemini model.
And was I question whether or not they're just going to give us more tokens or whatever.
Well, that's going to be the question. Is it a larger context window? Is it going to be faster? They kind of hinted at the fact that it's going to have support for even more modalities beyond just images. You know, will it be able to support video
feed? Yeah.
Will it be able to support multimodal output? Because we don't have multimodal output yet.
Yeah, see, that's what I was trying to get it to. That was one of the things I tried to get it to do initially, was a multimodal output.
And looking at the API, it's clear that the API is ready for that, but it's not there yet. So that, I think, is going to be, I guess that's both my prediction and my it's not quite a prediction. It's more, I really hope that what they give us with Gemini Pro is that, wow, because what they gave us, it's good. Don't get me wrong. But Gemini Pro really needs to kick it up a couple of notches. And they have the potential to do so. But this is Google, so who knows?
They'll probably change their name, and it will be out. Yeah. It'll go out in 2 months. We'll be talking about something else.
What are you looking forward to, or what's your hope?
I want to see it be able to output images. For example, with your macaron picture, I want to have had it put a star on top of each one so that I could see which ones it was seeing.
Yep.
I would like to be able to have it edit pictures and say, please move me one side to the left and make my hair blue.
Right.
That kind of stuff.
I think you make an interesting point there. It's not just, I don't want it to just generate a whole new image. I want it to work with the image that I have. And that's something we're not seeing a lot of right now out there. Because I think generating pictures is fine. It's cool, it's pretty, but I want it to take my existing pictures and help me use them effectively. I agree.
I have a notebook that uses I'm sorry, Ellie. That uses another AI from Google. I can't remember. I saw a video on it a couple of weeks ago. And basically what that one can do is it takes a picture and it will either I guess the original sample blurred the background. I changed it to do a green screen for me of the background. So there is an AI model out there.
Yeah, I believe that's the what is either referred to as Imogen or Imagine, depending on how you like to pronounce it.
So I got that to work, and that's kind of cool what that one can do. It's not perfect by any sense of the means. It blurs stuff out. It's not very tight around the edge. And
but that's also an interesting point, is that right now we've got Midjourney, we've got Stable Diffusion, we've got DALL-E 3 are all doing amazing stuff with image generation. Where's the equivalent version of Imagine? And OpenAI has tied DALL-E 3 and GPT-4 together. When's Google going to do the same thing, or at least release an equivalent?
They have to, because that's basically what they're missing now, is some kind of image generation creation type thing. I mean, I think they've gotten pretty close. I think they've almost caught up to GPT. I think they're doing really good. You know, I was a diehard GPT fan until probably around August, and now I'm almost only using Bard. In the beginning, I was using Bard and ChatGPT, trying to see which one, because they locked us out of Bard for so long in Europe. We simply couldn't use it, and I was too lazy to get a VPN running. But now Bard works here, so I like it.
This has been a great conversation, but I know both of us want to get back to digging into it and figuring out what we figure out. So I am sure you and I will have plenty more conversations and plenty more that we record. We always do.
We always do.
And plenty more that we record as we discover more stuff, and we will share it. You know, I hope that folks who are tuning in share with us, what are the stuff that you're looking forward to in Gemini? What have you discovered? What are the neat features you've seen so far? Because I'm sure we have not uncovered everything yet.
I can't wait to hear, you know, what other people come up with, ideas for apps for this, and you know.
Yep. So Linda, where's the best place to reach out for folks to find you?
I'm on Twitter sometimes, not as much as I used to, because now it's X and I don't think it works very well. You know, I'm on Stack Overflow. Dimetoe Developer Tips is my YouTube channel, and then Dimetoe's my website. So I'm around if you need me.
And you can of course find me on LinkedIn, or just leave comments below. And Linda, I hope to have you back another time on Two Voice Devs.
Two Voice Dev.
Take care.
Bye.